not here to hype Ville Koivunen. I'm not here to make him into something that he's not for whatever reason. But when it comes to the prospects they've got, he's the one that's banging down the door. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates, but I spent the day at the hockey rink yesterday, and you can hear that, I hope, in my intonation throughout this episode. Good to be there. Good to talk to a bunch of people, a lot of the prospects, management types. And if you didn't check out the DK Pittsburgh Sports app this morning, where we have extensive coverage between what I offered and what our beat writer Taylor Haas offered, you'll know that there was a practice in advance of the Prospect Challenge that, by the way, she's in Buffalo right now covering, because there will be a 3:30 p.m. face-off today between the Penguins prospects and the Bruins prospects. But the NHL level guys were there too, with very, very few exceptions. So we got to see, among other fun things, a Sidney Crosby, Brian Rust, Sam Poulin line. I got to see Sam take off his helmet afterward when it was just me and him in the corridor, and he beams with this big smile because he could see my surprise in his having this shiny new buzz cut. There was a good vibe, a good feel through the place. It felt a little bit different. And I'm not going to be one of those people that as soon as the head coach of a decade who won 2 championships walks out the door and then I turn my back on him. I'm not doing that. But it's very much both understandable and to be expected that someone new face, new voice, is going to result in a new feel. We'll see whether that's for the better. Now, Dan Muse wasn't on the ice. The coaching of the prospects, both for this practice and for the week-long tournament ahead, is being handled by Kirk McDonald, the head coach, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, and others on the 2 minor league staffs. But it was neat, fun day. Got to watch a couple of different sessions, got to watch a couple of different drills, got to begin paying some attention to what the coaches were telling the players from a team standpoint, so I could begin to infuse whatever the Muse strategies might be. We'll have time to talk about that in the coming days. But more than anything, what I like to do in these settings is just see the athletes, talk to the athletes, find out what's new in their lives, what's new in their hockey orbit, and just calling it like it is. Out of the 24 players who are now in Buffalo, the one who's made the biggest and best impression at the NHL level was Koivunen in those final 8 games at the end of this past season. 7 assists, no goals, but he certainly had his chances, including one big one in the home finale in a 2-on-1 with Sid, which he clanged off the pipe to the vocal disappointment of the crowd at hand that was looking to erupt. Here's a couple minutes of my conversation with the kid. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Ville Koivunen, take me through those last 10 games of last season and what they meant to you. You had to be thinking about that all summer.
Yeah, I meant a lot, of course. I got to play a lot of playtime too, and of course when you play in NHL, it's a dream of yours when I was a kid, so it meant a lot, and of course to play with Sid too, it's amazing.
Being out there in the situations that you were in, power play, top 6, top line, Sidney Crosby, all that stuff. After it was done, like, did you think to yourself, oh, I could have been better at this or done more of this or that?
Yeah, of course you always.
I know you wanted to go.
Yeah, like always you want to improve and try to just, if you think what you did there, you want to be better.
Like what?
Like some puck decisions, of course, especially like first couple games, like of course you're not try to be like smart, play smart, don't do any big risks. So I think like that kind of things, and of course like try to just get better with like physical strength and speed too.
When you're out there, and no offense, you're a kid, and you're looking on the power play, and here's Sid, here's Gino, here's Erik Karlsson, here's Chris Letang, here's Ricard Raquel. But you looked to me like you kept playing your game. Like you didn't change anything. Like you didn't go, ooh, I'm going to go ask them for their autograph or something.
Yeah, of course, a little bit nervous when the first practice.
I'm sure you were. I saw
first practice, power play, but yeah, I just think what got you here, you just try to keep going that and just play your game, and that's why you are here. So I think that's what I think when I went there.
Anybody help you with it? Anybody tell you, hey, listen, just play?
Yeah, everyone told me just play your own game and just use your strengths. That got you here, so just keep doing that.
Evgeny Malkin told us, and he does not say this about very many young players. He said he's going to be a great player. What did that mean for you? Because I know you heard about that.
Yeah, it means a lot, of course. He's a great player, what he's done. And yeah, that's pretty impressive that he said that.
Physically, he didn't look much different. He's got kind of a wiry build to him to begin with. He's 5'11", 161 in his official listing. He looked upper body-wise like he was more filled out. On the ice, he showed his usual niftiness. I think that's a fair way to describe his style. He's got some nifty elements to his game. He's also got a good spirit about him. He's got this thing he gives off that, yes, he takes the game seriously. Yes, he works hard when he's on the rink, but he's never engulfing himself. You heard how honest he was when I asked him about pressure that he felt at one point or now or playing with Sid and those guys. Acknowledged early nerves, acknowledged that he's just going to have to be himself in order to succeed. In this session, he had a clean breakaway on Sergei Murashov, who was just, I know, it's just a practice, I guess. But I'm sharing with you what it is on the 12th of September, and I hope you keep it in that context. But Murashov made a lot of really good saves. Koivunen had a clean breakaway on him, made a little backhand tuck attempt that reminded me a lot of a move that you'll see from Elias Pettersson in Vancouver, who I think is like the king of niftiness in the NHL. And Murashov juts out that left leg pad, and Koivunen just playfully skates into the corner to get behind his teammates in line for the next drill, and has both of his gloves over his helmet and his mouth hanging open. Everybody got a big kick out of it. My belief, based on what I've seen, and I should add what I've heard from the management types, is that Koivunen, barring something unforeseen, is going to be a top six guy on this team. Starting right out. He's going to be a power play guy. Starting right out. And as such, I think it's going to be up to Koivunen and Rutger McGroarty, who's hurt, by the way, and Harrison Brunick, who told me yesterday he has one goal in this camp, and that's to make the team. And Owen Pickering, who's now 21 years old. These are the players who have to be the difference makers. You know, after X number of years or even decades, what you're going to get out of a Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, Erik Karlsson, Brian Rust, Ricard Raquel. You know what you're going to get. That's not to say that they can't exceed those things. We just saw Rust and Raquel both hit career highs in the 2024-25 season. It is to say that the best way to make an impression on this general manager, that maybe this whole process is accelerating faster than he'd anticipated, that maybe making some late push to get into the Stanley Cup playoffs would make for a worthwhile investment of sorts. The kids are going to do that. The kids have to do that. That might begin with Koivunen. When we come back, J1Q. Hey guys, if you're planning to see a concert or a Penguins game, once the NHL season starts, use the Game Time app to get your tickets. You can snag new ticket deals before anyone if you set it into app alerts. The app is easy to use. No surprise fees at checkout. You can see your seat view before buying, and you're getting legit tickets delivered on time. If you're not much of a planner, you can get last-minute deals on tickets right up to the start of an event. Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app and enter the code DKPenguins in your app profile for $20 off your first purchase. Today's J1Q comes from Bill Boyd, who says, DK, I was thinking back to how excited I was at the possibility of the Penguins swinging a deal to get Erik Karlsson, to the point that I was checking the internet about 10 times a day when Kyle Dubas found a way to swing that deal. At the time, I thought it was one of the greatest feats I'd ever seen from a hockey executive. Fast forward to now. Everyone's looking at this as an albatross around the organization's neck. Is it possible that Dan Muse might just find a way to harvest the extraordinary talents of Karlsson that we've seen in small samples? I have a hard time believing that a guy who produced 101 points and won a Norris Trophy right before coming here can't function in the presence of highly talented players. Karlsson is one of those many veteran guys who was already in the fold nice and early. This was a really light and loose and self-controlled scrimmage, so I'm not about to evaluate his showing because it wouldn't matter any more than anybody else is showing. But he's there. They're almost all there. And I've talked at length, Bill, on this program. I've written at length about this on the app, that there was always going to be some kind of divide between how Karlsson would perform in Pittsburgh and what he did in San Jose in that season that you referenced to get the Norris, the 101 points, where the Sharks were a terrible team. They had a bunch of third and fourth liners, even on their first two lines, and they would just send people to the net functioning almost like fire hydrants for him to carom shots off of them. And he's really, really good at that. Dude can knock beer cans down from the blue line. And I know that he knew when he got here it was going to take time, not so much for him to adjust to the Penguins, but for the Penguins to adjust to him. And that is, by the way, how things have to go in those settings. It's important. No, it's imperative that when you acquire a player of that pedigree, that they make sense for you. So you could bring, in theory, 101 points over from San Jose, but not really. It just wasn't the same scenario. It took a while. Eventually, you started seeing even some of the Penguins' best players, even Sid, finding ways to work with Karlsson. You might remember some of the goals that the two of them connected for just this past season, where Sid would just line up somewhere on the power play, somewhere to the left or right of the net, and just, be that fire hydrant, only an exceptionally gifted fire hydrant. He would do some really nice things on those tips and redirects. But there's another variable, and this is the one where Karlsson would have to look in the mirror, and that's that he wasn't at his best, in part because it visibly was the case that he wasn't trying his best. You can call that laziness, you can call that a lack of focus, but it became unmistakable that as that season got closer to the Four Nations tournament, and that Karlsson began hearing public criticism from back home in Sweden that he shouldn't even have been on that roster with the way he looked in Pittsburgh, what do you know? Everything just started to get better. And then he goes to the Four Nations, small sample size being necessary, and was terrific. He looked like Karlsson from, not San Jose, but the great version of Karlsson from Ottawa. He was really sharp. And one does not have to guess whether or not that irritated people associated with the Penguins, since Dubas brought that up unsolicited in his end-of-season press conference. Just said, we would like for Erik to be more like that player that we saw in that tournament. Well, okay, he's still signed for the next 2 seasons. He's still going to be the Penguins' highest-paid player. But this season, the NHL returns to the Olympics. And I'm not about to suggest that the Swedes might not want Karlsson, especially since, again, he did perform well in the Four Nations. And I'm not going to say that Sweden's literal athlete of the year, as christened by the King of Sweden, not exaggerating any of this, 3 years ago, is on anybody's bubble. But if he feels it, and he feels it sooner than he did this past season, and then you combine that with, as you were saying, whatever impact the coaching change might have, we'll see. We'll see. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these on Monday.